Hello, how you doing? My name's Adam. I've just come out of the Spider-Man No Way Home cinematic experience, and my God, wasn't it an experience? It really was. It was so fucking good. This section of the video is going to be the non-spoiler section. When I flip to the horizontal, that's when you know I'm going to be talking spoilers, and I will let you know that I'm going to be talking spoilers. But this particular segment, no spoilers. The film was great. The first act was fast-paced, picks up exactly where the last film left off, with everybody finding out that Peter Parker is in fact Spider-Man, and the kind of repercussions of this and what happened. And it was like crazy action, very high, fast-paced. Tom Holland is the best he's ever been in Spider-Man. This is his best performance yet, absolutely, and he is still my favourite Spider-Man. I'll stand by that. He's my favourite Spider-Man because he has really sort of embodied the role now, and I always liked him from the get-go. He really does seem to get Peter Parker and he gets Spider-Man. He kind of nails both of them. Obviously not taking anything away from Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield, who were both excellent in their own specific roles, but yeah, he's always been just slightly my favourite, and he definitely is now because he really does a really good performance. The second act sort of does wane a little bit, not much, but that's the second act. That's the part where the action sort of slows down a little bit and it's a little bit more exposition. The third act is the big one. It's the third act, so I'm going to say. But yeah, 100%. Obviously, you're going to watch the film, but me as a Spider-Man fan, I was extremely happy. Loved it. And I'm sure you will too. Oh, hello there. How you doing? Welcome to the spoiler section of the Spider-Man No Way Home review that I'm doing now. This is the spoiler section, so there will be spoilers due to it being the spoiler section. Where to start? Charlie Cox, aka the Daredevil, is Peter Parker's lawyer in this movie. He's only in the film very briefly, but he's now in the MCU, and Daredevil Charlie Cox is canon now. Next, we have obviously in the trailers all the MCU Sony previous villains. So we have Dr. Octopus, we have Sandman, we have the Lizard, we have Green Goblin, and we have Electro. Electro, Green Goblin, and Dr. Octopus have the most prominent parts, with the most sort of screen time and words and stuff. The least would be the Lizard. The Lizard was slightly disappointing me just because of how he looked. I think he looks a little bit worse than he did in the original Amazing Spider-Man film, but it really didn't detract from the film too much. There were some fantastic scenes with the Green Goblin. The Green Goblin, Willem Dafoe, him and Electro and Dr. Octopus were pretty high up there in my estimation for their acting and their villainous sort of portrayals. I think Willem Dafoe probably edged it the most because he had the most prominent part, and here's a massive spoiler as well, he kills Aunt May, which I kind of thought was going to happen. I did have an inkling that was going to happen, and it did happen. And it's a really sort of dark sequence in the film, and this is the third act, and it really sort of turns the film on its head. The beginning of the film is kind of sort of like fast-paced and, you know, shit, everybody knows I'm Spider-Man, I've got to sort this out. And then all of a sudden these villains from other universes start appearing, and they have to contain them in the Sanctum Sanctorum. So Peter Parker is given by Doctor Strange this sort of amulet wrist thing, shoots his web at them, and that transports them to the Sanctum Sanctorum and keeps them like locked up before Doctor Strange intends on sending them back to their own universe. It's when that Peter Parker discovers that sending them back to their own universe would lead to their death. Aunt May kind of convinces him that it's really not a good idea to send them back to their death, because that's not what Spider-Man's about, and that's not what Peter Parker's about. And she even gives him the with great power comes great responsibility speech. So Peter Parker then has to round up all these villains. After he's captured all the villains, Spider-Man wants to return them back to their former selves, but Doctor Strange thinks otherwise and isn't happy with this idea because it's their fate and it's their destiny, and he doesn't want Spider-Man messing with the spell or their fate or whatever. So basically, Spider-Man and Doctor Strange have a little fight. Spider-Man manages to one-up him, take away his sling ring, the one that makes the portals, and he manages to take away the cube as well, which contains the messed up spell. He entrusts Ned with the sling ring and MJ with the cube. J. Jonah Jameson is in this film, but he's not in it that much, but he does pop up every now and again, just to do a news bulletin to say how bad Spider-Man is, basically. And in the news bulletin, he basically says about Aunt May dying. Ned and MJ see this news bulletin and they don't know where Peter Parker is because he's gone off in a rage. He really wants to find Green Goblin and kill him. So they're worried about him, and so Ned accidentally sort of figures out how to do the portal and basically opens up a portal for Spider-Man to come through. But it's Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man who comes through, and it's such a cool moment when he does come through and he's in the outfit and everything. And then they try again to get Peter Parker back again, Tom Holland's Peter Parker back again, but instead Tobey Maguire's come through. And it's like those scenes and that whole sort of third act of the film is when it's just like crazy, because it's so cool to see them all together, and you get really nostalgic about the old films as well. But it's not just like fan service, it's actually really propels the plot, and it's really good to see them as well, especially when they're all three together and they're all joking around and asking Tobey Maguire about how he gets webs coming out his wrists and they don't, and it's just quite funny scenes and everything. But yeah, overall, and then the three of them get together, convince Peter Parker not to kill Green Goblin, and they get together and try and capture the escaped crazy villains. But basically, seeing Tom Holland and seeing Tobey Maguire and seeing Andrew Garfield all together is probably the part that I thought was so cool. It was the best. I love seeing the old villains as well, but all three of the Spider-Man being together was absolutely fantastic. And the end for me was what really did it. After everything had been said and done, everybody had been sent back to their prospective universes, and then in the end, he has to erase everybody's memory to sort of save the day, basically. And everybody's memory's erased, and it's really bad for him because he's like, oh shit, MJ's completely forgotten who he is, and he goes to a coffee shop where she works and talks to her, but she has no recollection of who he is. But then, we see his life kind of get back on track. It's really sad because obviously he goes to visit Aunt May's grave, but he gets into college. He sees that MJ and Ned get back into college. He gets his own apartment. It's like a real shitty apartment, like Tobey Maguire's shitty apartment. Like Spider-Man always had shitty apartments because he's never had the best of luck. But the best part for me was when he makes a new suit, and not makes a new suit in the Tony Stark lab kind of way. He makes a new suit on a sewing machine, and you see the suit, and it's like the normal OG Spider-Man suit. Although it did kind of remind me of, in the comics, there's a suit that's sort of a little bit, because it was quite blue and it's a little bit sort of almost neon. It was when Peter Parker became rich in the comics anyway, and he had a different suit, but it did kind of remind me of that one. But you see him in that suit, and I was like, yes, they've got him. Now that's it. Now they have Spider-Man and they have Peter Parker locked in as the character that we all know and love. These three films have been the build-up. This has been him becoming Spider-Man, learning responsibility and learning to be Spider-Man. And now, going forward, he's going to be in college. He's going to be Spider-Man. So I'm really looking forward to see where it goes. if it goes anywhere. Even if it doesn't, that was a really good like ending. And I just want to see that costume again at the end, the very end, because I just think it looked fantastic. And then there's post-credit scenes. The post-credit scene being Tom Hardy, Venom. We see him at a bar and he's drunk, and he's been transported to that universe, to the MCU universe, as we saw at the end credit scene of Venom versus Carnage. And he's discussing with the barman, like, so this is a world full of superheroes and this, that, the other, and he's like, crazy, and he's like, what? But then just at the end, he gets zapped back to his universe at the point when Doctor Strange sent everybody back. But a little bit of the Venom costume was left behind on the bar. So Venom can now exist within the MCU universe, but won't necessarily be Tom Hardy, so that'd be crazy. And the very last after credit scene was Doctor Strange. Basically like a Doctor Strange trailer for the next film. And it looked really cool. And it's like, it had Hugh McGrath, the big one-eyed like tentacle monster in it. It had Wanda Maximoff in it, and Baron Mordo in it as well. So it was all very like, it was just like a quick sort of clip, but it did look amazing. Some of the sort of effects looked really good. And it did, weirdly enough, looks very Sam Raimi, because he's the director of that film, and just some of the shots looked very Sam Raimi, and I can't wait to see it. It's going to be fantastic. But overall, that was a really good film. It wasn't like, for me, it wasn't the best Spider-Man film ever. That still belongs to Spider-Man 2 for me, because it's a more complete film. This was, it did have like segments, you know, where you sort of, if you haven't seen any of the previous Spider-Man films, there's no way you're going to understand what this film's about, but everybody's seen it anyway. And if you're going to watch a Spider-Man film, then you surely know what's going on by now. But yeah, if you haven't, there's no way you're going to understand what's going on. The second half had a little bit of a slowdown because of the exposition and what have you. But once Aunt May died and the other Spider-Man came in that third act, it just like hit the pedal, and it just went crazy because it was so good. It was really, really well done. I can't wait to see it again. And yeah, that's my basic thoughts on the film. I thought it was fantastic. So, and the future of Spider-Man looks really good. So that's my review. Hope you enjoyed it. It was a bit of a ramble because there's so much to talk about. I hope you get to watch it yourself and put your thoughts on the film down below in the comment section. Until the next video, I love you very much. God bless. Goodbye.